Hi everyone, this is Wayne Davies from Spectrum Economics, and today I want to talk to you about my social economic utility analysis model. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's something I've been working on for a little while now. It's always been kind of a bit of a work in progress, and I wrote a post about the algorithms that went into it, and also another post just looked at a little bit at the how the model worked. I had some screenshots in there. But so far I haven't actually made any videos about the model, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. And as I go through it, I'm going to explain how the spreadsheet operates and also why it's set up in the way that it's set up. So anyway, let's get into the model and we'll have a look.
Okay, so let's start with the cover page. So this is a very basic cover page. So you've got the social economic utility analysis. It's got the name of the model here. You got the name Spectrum Economics, or as I'm known as on some of my social media websites as Spectrum Econs, which is a short form for that. I've got the little symbol up here. And we also got some buttons here, which actually allows us to access the model itself. So we've got survey, got the survey method, manual entry, and instructions. So the most important thing to start with would be the instructions. And that's not just for yourself, but it's for anyone else who may be using your model as well, depending on what the model is being used for. So anyway, this is a good reminder, because if I don't use something for a long time, I tend to forget certain things. So it's all down here documented. So here we go. So we start with the instructions. Why create the model? Just a brief explanation of why I created this model, and I've got more information in the previous posts that I mentioned about, and also I think I'll probably include this in the description as well. We've also got getting started, so how we get into the model. So whether you want to use the survey approach or whether you want to enter the parameters in manually. It also explains how to navigate the results page. So we've got a results page per group, as well as an overall results where it's all pulled together. And also I've got an explanation in terms of transitioning between pages. So for that, it's supported by Visual Basic for applications, and we're using the macros. So we've got these little buttons that are using macros, so you can navigate it a lot easier. You can also use the tabs at the bottom, but that tends to be a little bit messier. So you use the buttons, it gives the model a better flow. Down here, below the instructions, we've got the algorithms, and this is important to keep these documented as well, especially if you have something that's just a little bit more complicated. As you can see here, so we've got a personal utility algorithm and external utility algorithm. So the personal one is quite complicated. It's the key algorithm basically supporting this whole model. So I'll just give you a very brief rundown of what that's about since I'm on this page now. So you've got several elements to it. So we've got the wealth element and the average hourly wages element. And in effect that works into the model in the sense that not so much that you gain utility out of wealth itself, but more of what the wealth can get you. And as you can see here, you've also got minus, I'm trying to remember what all these are, N, what was that little N? All the way down, here we go. So minimum daily required income to meet basic needs. Okay, so you need to have a certain amount of income, in other words, that's what the N means, in order for you to, before you can actually, I suppose, start enjoying life. You know, as you need your basic for your food, your shelter, etc., etc. And this then feeds into what we have is we've got the little t. You should see a little t in here somewhere. Multiplied out. This is the parameter represents the average amount of time involved with working. Where does that come in here? So that is, wow, it's quite a complex equation. This multiplies out, yet that is this section here of the equation. So this must be a wealth function, that first part, and this is the income function, which relates to time at work. So you separated the two because your wealth and doesn't require your time because you've already acquired it. We also got the daily amount of free time, and we also got time allocated basic needs. And all of these have different values in respect to utility. So if you're earning more money, for example, it gives you opportunities to do things that you may enjoy more if you didn't have the money. This also may not necessarily be the case, but the parameters in there to include it. So you've got some incentive to actually want to earn extra money. So if we move away from the personal utility algorithm, we've also got the externalities, external utility algorithm is what I'm calling it. So whatever you do, it has an impact on other people. It could be favorable, it could be unfavorable, positive externality, negative externality. So you could do a particular job and a lot of people benefit from that. So in the sense that you may choose a particular number of hours to work based on what you get out of it and what you're earning, but there's other people that are also gaining things out of it as well. There's other jobs, like for example, you could be a criminal, you could be a bank robber. Again, you may get a lot of enjoyment out of that, but others suffer in return. So it's really how we spend our time and the impact it has on others. So that's what that part of the algorithm means. So let's get back into the model. Here we go, back to the cover page. Now just have a quick look at this, what we call survey sample. So this information doesn't actually feed into the model itself, but it just gives you an idea of what goes into that. And this is broken down into several sections. We've got basic needs, we've got work life, we've got consumption choices, we've got life activities that you enjoy doing, doesn't necessarily involve money. So that is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. So okay. So most of these, from work life onwards, involves putting in a number from 1 to 5. So whether you strongly disagree or strongly agree with the statement, that feeds into the model itself and determines particular parameters. The first section, basic needs, is a very simple yes or no. Most of those, except for the last, which requires how many hours you need for your basic needs and how much money do you require to meet your basic needs. So again, that's going to vary from country to country and with different groups within that country as well. And for these sort of surveys, you would use a survey on an individual basis, but for the model itself, you'd be more likely you'd be averaging the numbers out, especially for these scores here, rather than basing it on per individual, or else it becomes a little bit too complicated. So you can enter now using the survey method, and it looks a little bit different. This is all pre-filled, by the way. This was necessary in order to test the model. You need to have certain parameters put in there. So I've got all 5, so you can go in there and change any of these numbers just to see how it operates. Like for example, I think you could put that in as, let's say, a 3. And change it back to a 5. So all of these have a different impact, and we've also got different cases as well. So one is a before case and one is an after case. So for example, if you're using the model to analyze a particular change that has a particular impact on a group of people, so you'd enter in the before case, basically what they are at the time or before that, let's say, policy was put into play, and then you have an after case as well, so you can make a comparison. So this is somewhat similar in terms of what we have for cost-benefit analysis, where you have a base case and a project case. This doesn't necessarily relate to any particular project. It can relate to any sort of initiative whatsoever that has an impact on a particular group of people. So as we can go here, we can go to case 2. So again, it's the same questions, but you'd fill out the answers slightly differently depending on what you've got. And then we have a results 1. I'll go to that in a minute, but we've also got several more groups. So now we've got group 2, it's the same thing. Case 1, so you may have something like, for example, a policy that affects maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different groups, for example. So you want to have the before and after to see what the impacts are on these various groups. Again, we can go to this. Here we go, survey case G2 is in for group 2. Okay, let's just have a quick look at what the results look like. Here we go. So this is the results page for group 2. So at the top here, we start off with, do we use survey data? At the moment, we've got yes. You could enter no if you wanted to. And that would be if you used direct parameters. So you might have used other means of obtaining the data rather than the surveys that are set out within this model itself. We've got all these buttons here that can take you back to the various groups. So you could go back to group 2, or you could go on to group 3. Again, you can go back and do the manual entry as well. So let's take us back now to group 1. We'll go back to cover. Here we go, we're back to the cover sheet again. So if you don't want to use the survey method, you're not happy with the questions in there, or maybe it's not appropriate, you can use any other method you like. And we got here what we call the manual entry. So you would get your data and then you would configure it in order to put the numbers directly into this. So you get a direct comparison between case 1 and case 2. You can see here, the numbers are entered almost the same. except we've got available wealth. For some reason, we've reduced the wealth from 50 down to 20. I'm using daily values here, so it fits into the model a bit easier, but it needs a little bit of manipulation in terms of working out what's your amount of daily wealth that you'd be able to allocate. So, you know, for example, if you've got a lot of wealth, let's say you've got several million, but you're eating into that wealth on a daily basis as well, so you'd have to include what that is, as well as also you have your own income coming in as well, so it would be adjusted accordingly. And here it's got a quick comparison between the two. So what happens if your wealth drops from 50 down to 20? As you can see, personal utility falls, external utility increases. That's interesting in a sense that most likely you will be working more time. Here we go, time at work. So if you had less wealth, you'd spend more time at work. If you had more wealth, you'd spend less time working, because the desire to work, I guess in this particular case, is less. So consider the two cases, the wages are exactly the same and everything's exactly the same. But if you've got more wealth, then you don't need to work as many hours because you can use your wealth to support your income. Oh, sorry, support your lifestyle, should I say. And we've got here the same for case 2. Case 1, case 2. Oh no, this is the optimal. Sorry, I make it current versus current. As you can see, case 1, yeah, case 1 is better than case 2. So I made a comparison between optimal and current. So current is what they're working 6 hours, and optimal would have been 6 2/3 hours. And in the case here, in case 2, current is still, they still work 10 hours, but they should actually work 6.83. So they're still working too many hours in both cases, but the optimal is to work more hours when you have less wealth. And you can mess around with any of the other parameters as well. Like, for example, I could change hourly wages, put that down to 8. There we go. So what happens if it goes down to 8? You actually end up working less hours. So you get some strange things like that. It might actually seem strange, but if your wage actually goes down, you might be willing to work less hours because you actually, the amount of time you put into it and what you're getting out of it is actually less. So these are optimal, but then look at your personal utility is taking quite a dip. What if we were to push this up to 18, for example? You end up working more hours, but your utility's gone up, even though your wealth has decreased, but because your earning potential is higher. So that's just having a bit of a play around. And we can go to next, manual entry as well. This one I've done nothing, so this is good for testing. So you should get the same results in both cases. Needs to work out pretty well. Go to manual entry number 3. That's the same as well. Go to the results. So should probably actually go back. Sorry, manual entry 2, manual entry 1. So here we go. So now let's go to results. So you can see there's a difference. So the information that was presented on the previous page is presented here. So you got your case 1 versus your case 2. So your personal utility is increased. In both cases, your optimal and your current. As you can see, we've got optimal. So based on the parameters that are set, what should your amount of time should be spent working, what utility that will get you. These can all be converted into ratios as well. So in terms of what the, you can turn like percentage increase would be as effective. But again, though, this is all, as I say, this is a model. This is not an actual theory in itself, but it's used to support the theory. So you're probably thinking this all sounds rather weird. But the how these parameters are determined is actually through research, which is not, I'm not covering that off in this particular video. All right, so where do we go from here? This is group 1 results. Let's go back to let's go to manual entry results 2. Let's go to the final results. So you need at least 2 sets of results for final. So here we are. This is a summary of all the groups. You got case 1, case 2 for all 3 groups here. And also up here, we've calculated some differences as well. So ignore group 2 and group 3. Nothing much done with that, but we'll have a look here. So you can make a comparison between your absolute and percentage change between the optimal. So as you can see that the you got a 7% change in percentage. Externalities have gone up as well. So as you're working more hours, so effectively your work is benefiting other people as well. In terms of the current, we've also got a roughly similar percentage change. As you can see here, optimal, you have less free time because there's more desire to work because you can earn more money. The current is constant at 10 hours in both accounts, has not changed. And so, yeah, so basically this is just an interesting way of analyzing what the impacts of various changes. So in this video, I've only talked about changes in terms of income, but there's other things that can change as well. So just out of curiosity, I know I'm probably taking a bit of a risk here because there's still some testing that still needs to be done, but we can look at any of these other things as well. Like, for example, what should we change here? Time available for basic needs. Parameter for working hours, parameter for work-related activities. Should we change that? So let's say you really enjoy your work. What happens? Here we go. So again, your utility has gone up. And again, you'd rather spend more time at work, which makes sense. If you really enjoy your work, then your work actually sort of becomes like your pleasure. So then we can take a look at here, like percentage numbers. It doesn't look like it's changed an awful lot. It's gone up a little bit, I think. Anyway, so that sort of takes me more or less to the end of this video discussing this model. Like I said, it's still a little bit of a work in progress. I haven't done too much work on it recently, but I still probably need to go back and look at the theory a little bit more as well. But like I said, the model isn't the theory itself. It's just used to support the theory. And when you get more data and stuff, you can actually investigate some of the parameters and some of the relationships within the equation itself to see if it's operating as it is. But this should come as a useful tool just to give, you know, an idea of how people are using their time and is it really optimal based on how they view life, based on how they view their work, based on how they view their pleasure, which involves money, pleasure that involves maybe family, pleasure that involves probably a combination of all those. And that's really where this model sort of comes in that aspect. And it'll be supporting my theories that I've talked about in terms of utility based on time rather than based on income or rather than based on any particular, you know, goods or services that you may acquire. A lot of the time in economics, we talk about utility gain from what we buy or the money itself. The money itself in itself is probably the worst. What you buy utility is probably a little bit better. You buy a car, you get utility from that. I'll be looking at it in terms of you buy the car and you get the utility from the time that you spend with the car, in the sense that there are people that work literally like 12 hours a day and they may be able to accumulate a lot of things but never get really any enjoyment out of it. They also sacrifice in terms of time with their family, in terms of other things as well. And this sort of model is sort of helping me in terms of develop the theory in regards to that, you know, we should be valuing the time rather than actual rewards such as the income or such as what income can buy in itself. So anyway, thank you for watching this video, and I got a little bit more information in the description below. If you're on Steemit, you'll see a little bit more. If you watch this on YouTube, it's going to be very brief, but you can click on the link to the Steemit post. Thank you very much.